I call to order this meeting of Stillwater Area Public Schools ISD 834, a special meeting for Thursday, August 19th. Joan, can you take the roll, please?
Director Hackert. Here. Director Adkin. Director Porbenny. Director Riley.
Here.
Director Sherman.
Here.
Chair Petrie.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. We are here tonight to do some interviews for a board member to join the school board on a temporary basis until a special election can be held in November. This person will probably serve for a relatively short period of time, but we are required to fill this position temporarily by state law. And so we have had, how many individuals? Five. We've had 5 people apply for the position, and so we will bring them up to the table here to talk with us one by one. We have allocated about 20 minutes for each person to speak to us, although, of course, we're flexible about that. Some of the questions that we have here, there are 9 questions. Some of them can be answered pretty quickly, I would think. And so with that, we will call up our first person, and that is Chris Kunze.
Chair Petrie,
Yes.
do you want to just approve agenda? Approval of agenda?
All right, yes, we should do that. Motion to approve the agenda. Director Sherman, second?
I was going to say, do we want to modify the agenda? I'm just looking, it says selection.
Yes, I was going to explain that too, that we are not actually going to select anyone tonight. We are going to do that at our board meeting next week. We only have 4 of our 6 board members here tonight, and it didn't seem appropriate for us to make any sort of a selection tonight. And considering the fact that we would need to, it's only a week away for us to be able to have everyone's voices choosing that person. So that's the reason why we are not going to be actually making a selection tonight. So.
Do you need a motion to make that change, or I'm assuming?
I mean, yeah, I suppose
Okay.
if you.
I will make the motion
Okay.
to change it just to interviews.
Okay, all right. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. So then, all in favor of the amendment, raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. All in favor of approval of the amended agenda, raise your hand, say aye.
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 Those opposed, nay. Okay, I think we took care of that. All right. First person here is Chris Kunze. I am going to ask the first question, and from that point on, we will be going clockwise around the table and asking questions of the candidates until we're finished. Okay, all right. Thank you for coming. And the first question tonight is, we are asking for an opening statement by each candidate. Please tell us about yourself and your background and why you have applied for the vacancy in the school board.
Sure, thank you. Thank you all for considering me here. I don't know, I haven't spoken into a microphone for a very long time. And I had to dig this thing out because I haven't worn it for 2 years at least. So it was kind of fun this morning, or this afternoon when I was trying to find all this stuff. But as much as I don't want to fill in for somebody, I wish the existing board member would have stuck around for the entire term. I know that we are at a very critical time with the district right now. Going for the levy, a couple of other very difficult decisions that need to be made right now. So I think that you guys need to be at full strength. So when I heard this and that you guys were looking to fill this position, I talked to a few people and decided that this was going to be, I can do this. I was a board member from 2004 to 2008. Including, I think, vice chair and sat in his chair a couple of times and stuff like that. So I do have some experience. I've been through the training that's necessary to be part of the school board. I can't imagine that any other trained or any other person that you would select that hasn't been on the board would have time to go through any of that stuff. But I love this district. Okay, I've had 3 kids, well, almost 3 kids go all the way through it. I have a junior who's my youngest right now. The other kids have graduated. My daughter graduated from college as a mechanical engineer and has got a job, and it's been great. My other son is in Eau Claire, And, this school district set them up very, very well. I want to continue to invest in public education. I think that public education has a place in our country, in our state, in our city, and I think that we need to fund it and make sure that we get the best possible education that we can get.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. A parent calls or emails you asking that you take care of a problem they're having at their school. What would you do?
Yeah, what would I do? First of all, it's not the board's, it's not the board's job to talk to parents about individual problems that they're having with a student or with a particular school or anything like that. It's the board's job to work with the leadership of the district, the superintendent on down, and have the problems and the issues come up through the quote unquote chain of command. I think if a board is getting into that level of detail, we're going to be ineffective as a board, because we'll get too much into the weeds and we won't be able to make the policy decisions and things that are necessary in order to make this district very successful. So I would absolutely listen to it. I want to know what's going on out there, but I would advise the person to go up through the principal, and if that person had said, hey, I've gone that way, it didn't get me anywhere, I would then ask the board to ask the superintendent to investigate and go from there.
All right. Hello, how are you?
Good.
Okay, number 3, approximately 70% of the residents living within District 8 through 4 boundaries do not have children in Stillwater area public schools. What are some of the ways you feel the district could engage them?
Yeah, that's always been a tough issue in this district. It's always been very much an older district with a lot of taxpayers that don't have students in there. So the board has to reach out to them. It's changed a little bit, it's amazing. It was 15 years ago or whatever that I was in here. So things have changed quite a bit. But back when I was on the board, we used to go out to the community. We would have sessions at schools, invite people to come in, talk to us. I would highly encourage this board to do that again. It doesn't have to be the entire board. Maybe it's 1 or 2 select board members, but we have to go out and make an effort to reach out to the community and talk to them. I do like the social media stuff that's been going on, the Facebook and the other things, the web page and stuff like that. That makes communication a lot easier, but it's also 70%, and maybe there's people who don't like the technology as much. So that's why I think we need to do both ways and both things. And it's done. I've done it a few times. I went out to Rutherford. I went out to Lake Elmo. I've gone to quite a few different schools to have the conversations, to have a conversation about the levy or about the laptops or whatever it happens to be. We've had those conversations, and it's worked well. You're not going to change people's minds, but at least you show that you're concerned about their opinion.
Thank you.
Okay, number 4, when you take the oath of office, you will pledge to be both morally and legally responsible for equitable quality education of every student in the district. How will you fulfill this oath?
Yeah, that'll be tough with the 2 or 3 meetings that I might possibly be part of here. Let's be honest, it's going to be difficult there. But I have seen that this board has started doing some of the things that are necessary to make that happen. Okay, you've been going through the policies one at a time, through the different levels, making sure that they're still valid today. That's ultimately what the board needs to do. We need to set direction for the district, for the superintendent to follow that direction. So going through the policies, going through the regulations, that type of stuff, that's what the board is responsible for, to help the administration do it.
Okay, thank you. Tell us about a time when you had to support a decision you disagreed with. How did you handle it, and what was the result?
Yeah, it's difficult. It's very difficult. Especially something that you are so vehemently opposed to. It's incredibly difficult to do it. The one thing that I have done in the past is I'm a little bit more quiet about it. Okay, I can't be a cheerleader for something that I don't fully agree with. I can't, because it's gonna come across as disingenuous. I'm not that good of an actor. So, I try to take a little step back. I don't actively oppose it, which is always, a good thing. Or try not to actively oppose it, I guess. I did make a little mistake with a levy when I was, in 2008 or whatever, where I did come out against it afterwards, and I really, really struggled with that one. That one hurt me quite a bit, personally, because I was like, I came out, it didn't pass, but luckily we were going out a year early, so we got it passed the following year. But, it is something that I learned my lesson with. I know that I need to, make sure that I can find that silver lining, that thing that I can support, even though you can't support the entire thing. Find those things that I can support and support them, and support the board to really be the cheerleaders for the cause.
Okay, on to number 6. Are you planning on running for school board in the fall election?
No. I put it in the questionnaire. I don't think that this position should be filled by somebody who's running, because then you guys are almost kingmakers, you know. Oh, see, then the person can say, well, I'm already on the board. You're just I'm just for real. I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna fill in the spot. There's some benefit to possibly having somebody do that, and the fact that they can hit the ground running a little bit earlier, but I don't think that the board should be in the position of kingmakers.
All right, this one we've already answered, but I'll say it anyways because it's number 7. Have you been through any formalized school board training? If so, what training?
Yeah, I did. Like I said, when I was on the board before, we went through I can't remember how long it was, a couple of days of training. So it was kind of fun, but yes, I have.
Next question. What would you do to contribute to an inclusive, welcoming environment for students of all backgrounds?
Yeah, again, it goes back, it's gonna be a very similar answer to what I've had before. It's the board's job to work with the leadership of the district to set the policies for the leadership, the principals, the teachers, everybody to implement within there. So if we're doing our job right as a board, we're setting these policies in such a way that the leadership can understand it and they can run with it. This is a part-time job, although sometimes it probably doesn't seem like it, right? I think we got paid $3,000 a year back when I was there, and I don't think it's much more now when I was looking at the budget. So it's not a full-time job. We're here to give guidance, we're here to give the regulations, the rules, stuff like that, and have the people who we're paying to do the work.
Okay, thank you. And our final question, please provide a closing statement on why you should be appointed to the vacant seat on the school board.
Yeah, this board right now is at an inflection point, okay? There is a very big deal, or a couple of very big deals coming up in November. And like I said, the reason why I wanted to be part of this is I wanted to help drive that forward, drive that to completion, make sure that it succeeds in this district, because I don't want to see the next board or next January's board have to start thinking about cutting $12 million out of this budget. Okay, it's just mind blowing because of the teachers that would have to be cut and the class sizes or the programs that would need to be cut. We need to make sure that we get this thing passed so that we can move forward. But the one thing that I'll impart when I'm here is that just because we have that money doesn't mean we need to spend that money right now. We don't need to. It's kind of like, and he'll hate me for saying this, but he'll never see it. Okay, my son gets a $20 bill in his pocket and he has to go out and spend it right away. Okay, we need to make sure that we're spending it on the right things. Make sure that we have the rainy day fund in place, which I've noticed that has been slowly declining as we've been moving along over the last few years. And make sure that we're gonna have enough money and we've set up things so that they're going to work, and this entire 10-year levy is going to last, and we're not gonna have to make major cuts when we move forward. So we need to be smart with the money and make sure that we move forward. The tech levy, all I can recommend is if this thing passes, make sure you spend it on what you say you're gonna spend it on. Okay, that's I think that was the last tech levy that got passed was in '03, '02 or '03. And they said, hey, here's our tech levy. Oh, now we got all this money. Those networks and all those upgrades that we said we were gonna do, we're not gonna do that anymore because we're gonna go do this, we're gonna run this experiment. And that, I was really, really opposed to that, okay? It was kind of a bait and switch. So make sure that even if I'm not on here, make sure that when you guys pass this tech levy, if it passes, make sure that you do what you say you're gonna do. So say what you're gonna do and do what you say. This is me pontificating a little bit, but I'm interested because I think that I can bring a lot to this board. I think that I could be one of those people that goes out and talks to the community. I can use the talking points. I can answer the questions. I have a fairly decent understanding of board finance, school board finance, or school district finances, so I can answer some of those questions as well. As well. Ultimately, I just want to make sure that this district's going in the right direction. Now, there's a couple of other decisions that you guys are gonna have to make that are gonna be made long before whoever fills this position gets in. And I'm very, very happy about that. The mask mandate, that one's really gonna hurt you guys because either way you go, you're gonna make half the people upset in this district. I don't envy that. I don't envy that at all. But you'll make that decision, you'll stick with it, it'll be the right decision in your minds. I know you guys will make the right decision, or, the decision that had to be made at the time. So I'm very excited about that. But ultimately, I want to help where I can. I want to make sure that we have the people that we need in place to make sure that this district moves forward in the right direction.
Okay. Thank you,
you.
Chris. Thank you for coming in tonight. We appreciate it. All right, the next person on our list is Don Hovland. Thank you, Don. Thank you for coming and joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Katie is going to have the first question for you.
All right, so Don, we'd like you to begin with an opening statement for us. So please tell us about yourself and your background and why you have applied for the vacancy on the school board.
Okay, I've had over 47 years of education, and 27 of them were in Stillwater. And I was the principal of Stillwater Junior High School and the assistant superintendent for 1 year. I was appointed to fill in when Ken Peterson, who was the assistant superintendent, went away on a leave for furthering his education. And the background that I had, I spent 17 years in Great Falls, Montana, and was as a teacher, as a vice principal and a principal, and then came here. And I found that there was something about the Stillwater school system that was really special. When I became principal of Stillwater Junior High School, we were the headquarters for Cub Foods is now, and then we moved to the old school building. And I had a staff that was just absolutely outstanding, and we decided that we would restructure and do away with the traditional closed classrooms and go to open classrooms and teachers teaching in large groups as teams and covering different areas of the curriculum. And one of the effects of the work that they did is that Stillwater Junior High School became one of only 11 schools in the United States that received a National Blue Ribbon of Excellence Award. And because of that, had a chance to meet with President Reagan. And then the second time, it was President Carter, and Cub Foods around, sent 5 of my staff members, myself, and 3 students to Washington, D.C. to receive the award and just sit there and visit with the president. I spent a year in the assistant superintendent's office here, as I said, and I think that we need to make sure that we realize how much and the challenges that we are facing right now that we have never faced in the history of the schools here, just not in Minnesota, but all over the country. And we've got to figure out a way to get back into the classrooms and where we can work with students so they can interact with each other. Teaching right now is the most difficult job in education because it's hard to do it by remote control and deal with the specific needs of each individual student. And I worry a lot about what's going to happen to these students as they move on through if they lose the chance they've had to interact and learn from each other. That's really critical. And I think I also believe I learned a lot by working in schools that had outstanding teachers. The teachers at Stillwater Junior High School were a unique group of people. They had a way of connecting with the students and dealing with their needs and teaching them and be all inclusive in the way they worked with them. And I didn't teach them that. They learned that by interacting with each other. One of the reasons I'd like to have another year on the board is I learned a lot the first time here. And I do definitely look forward to having another opportunity to do that because it's a great school district. And I think we have a lot to do. We're dealing with issues we've never had to deal with before. And so we've got to figure out a way to deal with that and move forward so that these students, as they leave the school district and go to college or wherever, they can compete and have necessary skills they need. We can't just automatically do that. It has to be worked at.
Thank you, Don. Thank you for your years of service. I hope that we can see Blue Ribbon Schools again here one day. So thank you for coming today. Question number 2, a parent calls or emails you asking that you take care of a problem they are having at their school. What do you do?
As a board member, I would meet with them and get some background and then connect with the school where the problem is and then collectively deal with it. I would not make a unitary decision on that. I would want to hear both sides of the story and then try to see if we can correct the problem.
Thank you.
Hi, Don. Okay, I've got question 3. Approximately 70% of the residents living within District 834 boundaries do not have children in Stillwater area public schools. What are some of the ways you feel the district could engage them?
One way that worked for us was the realtors would tell us when a new family had moved in. And one of us would make contact with that family so that they knew what to do if they needed some information, if they decided they want to come and enroll their family in the school, that they know something about it without just finding out the first time they walk through the door, to answer any questions they have about the general school climate. would connect with them. That's the bottom line.
Thank you.
Okay, next question. When you take the oath of office, you will pledge to be both morally and legally responsible for equitable, quality education for every student in the district. How will you fulfill that role?
When we become involved with education, whether it be a board member or a teacher, we have to really work at getting a background on what the needs of that family and those students are, and then try to move them in a direction where they can get some help. We have lots of areas of expertise in all of our schools, and we should make sure that the families feel that they have a connection and that they don't have to worry about and know the answers.
All right, great. On to question 5. Tell me about a time when you had to support a decision you disagreed with. How did you handle it and what was the result?
I had a teacher come in to me when I was the principal of the school who asked me if he could do a unit on rumors. And I said, yes. I didn't pursue it. And then the rumor turned out to be that the teacher and the student created an environment in the hallways that caused the students to think that the student was being beaten up. And then finally a day came where the students refused to go back to the class. And so I met with them in the auditorium of the junior high school and listened to them. And then I was busy talking about it when the particular teacher came in and faced the students. And then one of the students said, we won't go back to class. We don't want this to happen to us. And so then a student came in from the class who didn't show up in the auditorium. And he said, Mr. Jones, his name wasn't Jones, said, say you're sorry. And he said, no, I won't. So he took out a starting pistol from athletics and shot at the teacher. The teacher grabbed it, fell on the floor. And 4 of the students ran out of this building and went downtown and mentioned that a teacher had been shot by a student at Stillwater Junior High School. And I think that it was a thing I should have asked a few more questions. But when I received a call from the various media groups, they said, what happened? And I said, it's my fault. I made a decision and I approved it and I didn't check on it finally, but the blame falls on me. And then that was the way that I really believed that you need to deal with teachers and students, that your job as a building principal is to be responsible, not to shift the blame. Had I got more information, I would have said, no, you can't do that interview. You can't do that kind of an example. But I didn't do that, and that was my fault. And so the end result is that the climate in that school had not been really told how bad the climate at Stillwater Junior High School really was. And I found that by taking responsibility for that, which I believe I would do it again, that it united them and believed that they caused them to start to work again as a team. And then in 4 years, they had the first National School of Excellence. So I think that you have to an administrator or a board member, if the condition fits, you need to take responsibility for it. And then make sure it doesn't happen again.
Okay, thank you. Number 6, are you planning on running for school board in the fall election?
I totally enjoyed the year that I filled in, and I'm perfectly happy with doing it just for a year again.
Well, it would be for a year because
I really owe
in the
this
election, it's for a year after that. Right now, it's just for a little over a month.
I owe this district so much that I see a need to pay back with service. And I think that I'm of a time in my life when probably I'd just as soon just do the 1 year, but I'll give it 100%.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Have you been through any formalized school board training? If so, what training?
Well, I was very actively involved in the Minnesota Principals Association and the National Principals Association. And all of them deal with board relationships and everything else. But I learned a lot about the board the year that I spent here. And we had issues come up that we were able to deal with and openly and agree on the answers.
Great. Thank you.
What would you do to contribute to an inclusive, welcoming environment for students of all backgrounds?
I would again work with, find out what attendance area those students are going to be in. They're going to be at Stillwater Junior High. I would contact the administrators at Stillwater Junior High School and ask them to make a home visit to answer any questions they have about the school, to illustrate to them that they care about them and that they care about why they're there. So I used to do that all the time. I'd go visit schools, visit people who had moved here that were going to have using our school system and answer any questions they had, because they bring with them experiences they've had in the schools they come from. They want to make, if they were bad experiences, you learn those right away because they'll tell you they don't want it to happen again.
All right, and your final question for tonight. Please provide a closing statement why you should be appointed to the vacant seat on the school board of Stillwater Area Public Schools.
I think probably I'm being a little redundant, but the years that I spent in the school district were very valuable. They were learning experiences every day. I had the opportunity to work with some of the best superintendents and colleagues that you could possibly ask at. And you need to always make connection with your teachers. A lot of people do not know, maybe I'm off the subject a little bit, but a lot of people do not know that if you ask someone what is the most difficult job in a school district, and probably they'll all come up with a different answer. The one I would answer is the most difficult job in the school district is the classroom teacher, because they have to be better as the day goes on because their audience is not. And they never have a chance to just step out in the hall or just relax. The content, the pressure is there 24 hours a day. And so that is one thing that I think we need to make sure we recognize that the importance of the teacher and the whole structure. Our 2 national schools of excellence didn't happen because of me. They happened because of teachers and students. We had a student government that we created that had a House and a Senate and a president and vice president, and they had all the income from the vending machines. So they were able to pass legislation that helped certain students buy things and so on. But I think the education experience has to be all encompassing. It can't be just the class. it's got to be beyond that.
Okay, well, thank you very much for coming in, Don, tonight.
Thank you.
And we appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, the next person on our list is Hal De La Rosby. Welcome. Thank you for coming.
Good evening. Thank you for coming today. Could you please tell us about yourself and your background and why you have applied for the vacancy of the school board?
Yes, thank you, everyone. My name is Dr. Hal De La Rosby. I'm a graduate of Two Harbors High School, go Agates. Smaller community up north. The high school at the time was a 7th through 12th grade high school. My dad was a science teacher for 40 years. My mom worked in the district office, and my 4 siblings and I all went to school together for 2 years. So it was quite an interesting piece of education, is when you get up and you go with your family for the entire day. I am now at a point in my life where I am getting ready to send 2 of my children to school for the first time here coming out of a pandemic. So I moved to the district in May, and I have a first grader and a preschooler who will be joining 2 of the different schools in the district. For the past 20 years, my background has been in student success, mostly at the university level. That's been my research and my passion, is to figure out what motivates students to complete their degree and be successful in school. And when I moved here a couple months ago, I had envisioned in the long term being a part of the community in some fashion, whether it was going to be a city council position, whether it was going to be for a nonprofit board or a school district type of position, and was not intending on finding anything this quickly. But in reflecting on Tina Fey of SNL fame, when there's a opportunity, you say yes. And so the opportunity was, should I apply for this? And the answer was yes, which brings me here today. So thank you for this opportunity for me to share about myself and respond to some of your questions.
Thank you.
Okay, next question. A parent calls or emails you asking you to take care of a problem they are having in their school. What would you do?
Well, as a university administrator, I've been dealing with this for 20 years, and yes, parents still do call at that level. The important thing is when you get calls or emails like these, oftentimes there's a lot of passion involved because whoever is contacting you cares very much for their student. And whether it's a sense of wrong or injustice or whatever is happening, they want to make it right. And what's very helpful in those situations is to find the crux of the matter and to perhaps set aside a lot of the story and the passion and really find out what is the essence of this. Depending on who I'm talking to, sometimes with my students, I say, tell it to me in the form of a tweet, where you have to think about, if you have so many characters, how can you fit in what it is that you're looking with that? And once I have a better understanding of that, it's working with the partners to, particularly in my case, being new, working with other board members and the principal to say, okay, the essence of the concern is this. And so asking the principal, who is the best to deal with this? Is this something where you would like me to respond to it? Would you as the principal like to respond to it? Depending on the question, is there someone on your staff that you'd like to respond to it? But it's helpful to have a good understanding of what the concern is before you start answering and taking action, because sometimes that could lead you down a path that you don't want to go down.
Okay, approximately 70% of the residents living within District 834 boundaries do not have children in Stillwater area public schools. What are some of the ways you feel the district could engage them?
You know, I think broadening out in terms of not just success in the schools, but success in the community. And people live in the community whether or not they have children in the schools because they have a sense of pride in the community. So if we can identify student success in addition to being at this school, but they are from this township. I'm learning the geography, and Stillwater area schools is more than Stillwater. So the areas, I think, would like to be included in on that. I also wonder in terms of how many alums we have in the area and how well they would like to engage in the process by sharing their stories and their experiences. This may come from my 10 years of living out on the West Coast, but I think one way to engage as a school board member is to use the community events, the farmers markets, the derby days, the other things where you can have an opportunity not just to ask a school board member a question, but tell a school board member a story, something that highlighted your experience so that we can make those connections in there. I've also seen from some of the introductory materials of moving to the area that there's a large projected growth in Washington County as a whole. And I don't know if that's going to be specifically Stillwater area schools or some of the other areas, but the demographic right now of 70% could shift rapidly in the next 5 to 10 years with that. And so are we preparing not only for where we are with population, but where we might be in the next 5, 10, or 20 years that relates to who may be moving to the area?
Thank you. On to number 4. When you take the oath of office, you will pledge to be both morally and legally responsible for equitable, quality education of every student in the district. How will you fulfill that oath?
Yeah. Well, as was mentioned, it's a short-term piece. So I know that recently you've gone through some processes where you've been looking at your goals and some of the long-term aspects, but really I think in fulfillment of this position, somebody who's looking at the short term. And there is some complex and issues and with some passionate people. So finding a way within those questions to find out the evidence, designing a framework for how you're making a decision, and then making a decision within the best interest of the students in the community is going to be how I view this, this oath and this pledge.
Thank you.
Thank you. Number 5, tell me about a time when you had to support a decision you disagreed with. How did you handle it, and what was the result?
In my current and previous roles, I supervise a number of full-time professionals who are given charge to their areas and making decision that I have oversight from. And it comes up frequently that there may be times where I might disagree with an approach or the way that they're doing that. However, what I've found is looking at these questions in ways of there's not one right answer, but there's multiple pathways to getting to where we want to be. And fortunately, I have the great aspect of having a staff that I've hired that I trust to make those decisions and trust them in doing that. So I may share my insights or ways of thinking differently, but ultimately, if they have the passion and they have the interest and they have the information to take an approach, I will defer to their best judgment and be there to support them in that way.
Thanks.
Are you planning on running for the school board election in the fall, the special election?
As I indicated in my cover letter, I'm not planning on running. I'd rather devote my time and energy to the immediacy and not the intense time and energy and finances it takes to campaign for such a position.
Okay, thank you. Have you been through any formalized school board training? And if so, can you tell us about that training?
I have not been through any school board training.
Okay, all right, thank you.
All right. What would you do to contribute to an inclusive, welcoming environment for students of all backgrounds?
Yeah, I think you'll see from my CV, I have 20 years experience of finding ways to be equitable in education, both in terms of my research as well as the practical work that I do. And really what we're looking for is to help students find a sense of belonging. That if students feel like they belong to the school, that if they feel like they're a pony, that if they love to wear the colors that are associated with the school, they're more likely to be successful and persist there. If students don't feel like they belong, that's going to be where difficulties come up in terms of students not being able to persist through graduation. And I would want to lead by personal example in that in terms of being welcoming to all of the students in the district. Some of the things you might see in my previous experience, and this has been more volunteer than my employment, but there have been a number of times where I've been the guest speaker facilitator for the start of a school day at junior highs and high schools. If you give me a microphone, a gym full of students in 45 minutes, I will create a sense of belonging. That is something that I'm passionate for, and it's one of those things that I do without being paid because I love it so much. So by doing that demonstration, I would actually love to have the opportunity to go into all the schools and meet the students and be there on that opening day to generate that excitement, but to to give them the sense that you belong here. We want you to be here. Welcome to your school.
Oh, thank you. And your final question is, please provide a closing statement why you should be appointed to the vacant seat on the school board of Stillwater Area Public Schools.
Yeah. So I started to create a list while I was sitting there of reasons not to select me. And as I listened to my two colleagues, I kept adding to the list in terms of, I started up with, I don't have a history of living in the area. I don't have friends on the school board, and now I can add, I haven't been a school board member before to the list for that. As I was thinking about what would be successful in this position, I was thinking back to my high school and college days where I was a sprinter on the track team. And I spent a lot of time training for running short distances. And I remember getting to my last college meet, thinking to myself at the end of the race, I will never be this fast again. When am I going to train this way? Where am I going to race? It's not there. So starting the next year, I started, well, let's go the opposite direction. I'll become a marathon runner. Over the course of time, I ran in 3 marathons. I actually completed 2 of them. And I found out that it is very different training, even though they're both running. Typically, you on the board are marathon runners. When you make this decision, it's a long commitment, starting off with the campaigning and the financing and the time of energy. And then if you're lucky enough to be elected, then the work continues, right? With the onboarding process and multiple years on the board. So with that comes a lot of the long-term thing. You don't need a marathon runner for this. You need a sprinter. This is going to be a short distance. So you're going to be looking for somebody who can come in, quickly pick up the issues and the concerns that are there and be able to make sound judgments based off that. So I, in this case, am definitely not your marathon person for all the reason I've given you. Based on my background, I'd like to think that I could be a sprinter and pick things up quickly, make good decisions, and help bridge that gap for the community until somebody can be elected into the position.
Okay, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate it. All right, the next person on our list is Pete Kelsenberg.
Oh, a little early, right?
A little bit, yeah. Are you comfortable there?
Yes, this works, thanks.
Okay,
Okay,
all right.
Am I on? Okay.
you want me to choose? Okay.
I know. I had to remember from the last time. Okay, let's start with question 1, welcome. The question's just an opening statement. So just tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and why you've applied for the vacancy on the school board.
I anticipated this question. So I have 2 kids that have had their entire K-12 experience in the Stillwater area schools, Afton, Lakeland, Oakland, and the high school. And as they became students, I became a volunteer. And it was kind of a selfish reason, just to be with my kids and help them out, make their experience better. But I enjoyed it. I just had a lot of fun. And even if I was in a class that did not have my kids, I just had fun doing it. And people encouraged me to keep coming and doing it. So I did some para work too. I was actually paid to come in and do in the classrooms. And again, I enjoyed that. So the volunteering led, as my kids went up through the grades, so did my volunteering. So then I was a PTA at Afton Lakeland, then I was PTA chair at Oakland, and then a kind of a version of PTA, the building leadership team at the high school. And all of it's been a good experience for me, and it's been a good experience for my kids. They have excelled in the ways that they can here, and I want to see that happen for other people. And if there's any way I can facilitate that, I'm going to do it. Oh, let me add this other part. From Brookview to Marine and everybody in between. That's kind of my motto. So the district is big, and I want it to be good for all of them, so.
Okay. Oh. A parent calls or emails you asking that you take care of a problem they are having at their school. What would you do?
I would refer them, first of all. And that's the simple answer, I would guess, but I would also, after referring them, follow up. So just let me know if you don't get the answer that you're looking for, and I will help you further yet. And depending on the nature of the concern, I may follow up also. Call the superintendent or the principal and just say, hey, I've heard this concern. Can you look into it? But I would direct the parent, because that's really where they should be going anyway.
All right, question 3. Approximately 70% of the residents living within District 834 boundaries do not have children in the Stillwater area public schools. What are some of the ways you feel the district could engage them?
Stillwater Schools is still the home team. So even if you don't have kids in the school, it's the one you're supporting. I root for the Twins, but I don't have anybody on the team over there. So, but our schools, our cities and neighborhoods are better off when the schools are functioning well. And I would tell people that they got a good thing with our school system, because I've been a part of it, and if they're not, or they will be, they're in a good place. But also they may attend fine arts, sporting events, ESL classes, or something offered by Community Ed. I've been on their advisory council. So there's a lot of ways they might not realize this is really the school system that's doing this for you. And also as a realtor, I realize that their property values stay strong when an incoming buyer puts 834 as one of their search criteria. And that happens a lot. I see that quite a bit. You know, we're looking, they put that boundary, and then it has to be within there. Then they start looking at number of bedrooms, bathrooms, and whatnot, so.
Okay, number 4, when you take the oath of office, you will pledge to be both morally and legally responsible for equitable, quality education of every student in the district. How will you fulfill that oath?
It's built in. If I take an oath, it means I'm making a promise, and I don't make promises that I won't follow up on. So it's an oath, and I will take the oath and abide by it.
Okay, tell me about a time when you had to support a decision you disagreed with. How did you handle it, and what was the result?
Okay, a year ago, I was on the CDT, the Community Design Team, and it met for a number of meetings over a course of months. And near the end, as they're kind of gathering the input of the participants, there's one vote where we voted by standing up or sitting down, and the question was, should we sell the Withrow building? And not knowing how everybody else was going to vote on that, I stood up to say, no, let's not sell it. And I had my perspectives on that, and I explained them at the time, but I was only one of 2 people that took that position. But when it was done, it became part of the package of decisions that the group made, and I stand behind that package, and I stand behind the group that made those decisions, and I will defend it, you know, to the end that the group decided, and my position does not always have to prevail.
Am I next? Okay, all right. Are you planning on running for school board in the fall?
Yes. Yeah, I did file, when I turned in this paperwork, I filed at the same time, so yes, I'll be on that ballot. Vote for me, okay?
All right, number 7. Have you been through any formalized school board training? If so, what training?
No, I haven't. I come to these meetings, we watch these meetings, my wife and I discuss these issues at home, so I'm aware of the issues, but the actual, you know, there's probably some protocol that I have not had the training in, but I'll get it. I'll get it real quick.
Number 8, what would you do to contribute to an inclusive, welcoming environment for students of all backgrounds?
Our district, as I have alluded to before, is a very good district. There's a lot of people that are really excelling. So on the one hand, we have those that are excelling. But there's a gap. There's other people that are not excelling like them. And that's a gap that we can work on closing by bringing these people up without bringing, you know, at any sacrifice to the others, you know, pulling them down or at a consequence to them. But that will happen by working with the administration. I don't have these answers. We do have people that work full-time, all day, every day, all year, and I'll work with them and to lift up that experience for everybody.
Thank you.
All All right, last question. Please provide a closing statement why you should be appointed to the vacant seat on the school board of Stillwater Area Public Schools.
It'd be my background in the district. I have a unique perspective that makes up the entity of our district. I've been a substitute school bus driver for many years, and I just love when I go in and I say, "What do you got for me?" And they give me something I've never had before. So I get in it, and I run the route. And because of that, I've probably been on every mile of road in our school district, been in every neighborhood, and become familiar with all the schools, all the grade levels, all the levels of special needs. And that's just for the school day, and also for the teams that go elsewhere. When I'm sitting in the bus, I hear what's going on. I hear what's on those kids' minds. Or if I'm at a school and the kids are on the bus, but the buses haven't pulled out yet, that's my 5 or 10 minutes to talk to the kids. And just what's on your mind? And there's a way to get that information out of them if you just kind of prompt them a little bit and let them talk. So let them impress me with what they're getting rather than me trying to impress them with who I am. So, but I want to leverage this background for the benefit of everybody, and I think I can do that here, and I look forward to that opportunity.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right. Thank you very much for coming in. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
And our final person who we're going to speak with tonight is Phil Sainors. Hello, welcome. Thank you for coming. Okay, if you could give us an opening statement, please tell us about yourself and your background and why you've applied for the vacancy on the school board.
Phil Sainors, I live in Bayport. I trained about 300,000 people because of my transformational change agency. So the manufacturing base has problems with regards to hiring educated people. The economy would benefit significantly if the population was better educated. Some research says 4.5% to the GDP. And I think our educational system is hurting. And because of my experience with learning management systems and training, I could probably be of significant assistance.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Question number 2. A parent calls or emails you asking you to take care of a problem they are having at their school. What would you do?
Well, I'd be careful about overstepping my bounds. We have an organizational structure in place, so I would probably call the school system and talk to them about it, and then shepherd it through to make sure it got handled. I wouldn't want to bypass the organizational chain. That's a no-no usually.
Okay. Hi, thanks for coming tonight. Number 3, approximately 70% of the residents living within District 834 boundaries do not have children in Stillwater Area Public Schools. What are some of the ways you feel the district could engage them?
And the ones that do, some of them are homeschooling, and I've certainly gotten an ear on some of that, because I have been participating a little bit in some of the external groups. They're a little bit, some of them are a little bit extreme. There's a few of them meeting right now in another location, combining forces. Low crime, perfect example. A more reasonable climate. I think if the educational system in Minneapolis was better, we wouldn't have had 1,500 businesses that burned. Education is probably the key way for improving the quality of life. Domestic abuse, the ability to get married, have children. There isn't anything that's has a negative impact on uneducated population. Some of them might not have children in the system, but they might have children that have children, so therefore they have grandchildren. And I think that most people are willing to spend money if they get something for it. So I'm fully aware that there's a whole bunch of pending money that's out there. I don't see how that can't be overcome. And the school does need money. So you do have to do a little PR campaign. And I think it's not too difficult to show the benefits of education.
Thank you.
When you take the oath of office, you will pledge to be both morally and legally responsible for equitable, quality education of every student in our district. How will you fulfill that oath?
Kind of an obvious question in some respects. I have donated my time to the ADL group since about 2002, and I have leveraged learning management systems, SCORM, XAPI, those types of things. I don't think the school system's leveraging that very well. I think the preschool through third grade is a catch-up time period. I know that I've listened to a couple of your meetings now, as long as some of them are, and they talk about preschool through like first grade or second grade. The statistics I've seen is somewhere around third grade. There's a line that if, as third grade, what you are at third grade, you'll be at 55. I think that's kind of a, something that should change. And I think that some of my experience in using learning systems could be a significant help to the district. I may not context it properly, but when you talk about online, there appears to be an online relative to people logging in remotely. And I would suggest that there is no difference, that a classroom or online should not matter, technically. I've run IT since I've been 31 across the world. And my line is you can access the system 24/7, 365 days a year, rain or shine, anywhere in the world. So because of that, your ability to extend learning content out there is relatively easy. And if you conform to the standards that are out there, it's relatively easy to distribute that content. So specifically to equity, because there's a lot of talk on that, I divide it by economics, and I don't put a race slant on it. One of my studies is political science, and the economics aspect has always been there in almost any research I've ever seen. So if you're going to shore up people that have less educated parents, and maybe they're working 2 jobs, they don't have time to provide that additional environment to the children, and they come into the school system and their vocabulary is significantly less, that preschool through third grade on vocabulary and basic math can be short of, well. So I would throw technology at it in a proper plan.
Okay, thank you. Tell us about a time when you had to support a decision you disagreed with. How did you handle it, and what was the result?
I lead transformational change for my life. It's nothing but controversy, whether it be Germans not liking the English, or somebody not liking the supply chain, or the new costing, or whatever. So there's always unhappiness. Wanting to implement a new technology like labeling in the medical device area, it's very expensive, it's very complicated, and there's been some times when people don't want to adopt the new technology, so I have to figure out how to persuade them. In one situation at Lake Region Medical here, they're now called Integer, they're the largest OEM medical device supplier in the world. I implemented a medical device labeling system for them. Ops VP wouldn't sign off on it. Not uncommon that people don't want to adopt technology. So in that case, I couldn't persuade him. So I went to the president, gave him my word it would be okay. he signed off on it with a shaking hand, and it was a big hit. And that's, I'm pretty confident we can do that here. People forget things if you're successful. You can go over budget, you can go over time. But if you hit your mark, they're not going to care about the budget and time.
All right. Number 6, are you planning on running for school board in the fall election?
Yes. Third time's a charm, maybe. Huh?
Thank you.
Okay, number 7. Have you been through any formalized school board training? And if so, what training?
Besides the bath by fire of running?
Yes.
No.
Thank you.
What would you do to contribute to an inclusive and welcoming environment for students of all backgrounds in our district?
Wouldn't we have that already? I mean, my background is technology and technology environments. There's not a lot of discrimination in that. If you can do the job, you get the job. So I know I hear a lot of that. It's kind of strange in my world. So I guess I'd have to identify or ask, where are the issues? I mean, what's the issue? I've looked at some of the stats on in the stratification by the different nationalities and age groups and split, and I see the disparity. So in some respects, that creates some wasted energy and money by analyzing it that way, as opposed to just making sure every kid who's not passing rating gets the support they need. So I don't think it should be a colorblind, race-blind situation. If somebody's not passing, they should get shored up. And now, if you're talking about, I mean, that's the academic side. If you're talking about behavioral issues, well, that should get identified, and there really shouldn't be any of that here at all. Do we have behavioral issues? No comment. Okay.
All right, final question of the evening. Please provide a closing statement on why you should be appointed to the vacant seat on the school board of Stillwater Area Public Schools.
Well, I already talked about my number of people I've trained, my detailed knowledge in learning management, and my understanding of being able to probably help with shoring up not just people on the kids coming into the system with regards to computers and their learning capabilities, but then the high end, as you move through junior high and high school, there's a significant amount of technology out there. It would be fairly dramatically different than what you're doing, and significantly less costly by any stretch. So I think that could be very high value. I personally would really like to be able to have Washington County, the school district 830 board, for being a leader in the state of Minnesota and maybe even the country with regards to the adoption of technology. It's a hybrid classroom type of approach. You're not going to displace the teacher by any stretch. But there is technology out there that's able to not only provide the material, test on it, but grade on it, and then help coordinate with the records management, which sometimes consumes a lot of the teacher's time, which they would probably be open to. I probably crossed some borders that would probably be good for the board here. Being members of different groups, I have attempted to join a few groups in the process on the educational side, because I am putting more time into it. I try to pin them down to whether they're for education or let's be a binary, or against the levy, or for the levy. And so sometimes people say that they're representing themselves as for education, but they're really against the levy and the bonds. And there's a lot of research, a lot of activity, more than I've ever seen in my life go on these topics now. Just a lot of energy. The high probability is I could probably cross a number of borders on that. So I think that would be helpful. I think that I joked a little bit about when I sent a letter in about crowd control. I have no doubt that this is going to get worse in the community, and I think that heading that off would be good. And I'm not quite sure that that is occurring the way you could do it. You know, everybody cites their own science, like on the mask and the vaccinations and those types of things. But to some degree, they're citing their own with regards to the, you know, the performance of the school and, you know, the bonds and the levies and all the pending excitement that's coming. And I think that there's ways of getting ahead of that, given the fact that since I have been head of my field since 31, leading change on a global basis, I have skill sets with regards to organizational change and developing high-functioning teams that pull people in, as opposed to one side got voted out in the last election, so there's a new group in. So that new group is, whether they like it or not, is against the group that lost, right? And so far, I don't see as well as maybe could be done with regards to marrying those groups. There's a lot of reactionary behavior in my mind from the board responding to some of these stimuli. And I think that's a going out of business strategy for you. And I think you could get ahead of it and without having riotous behavior and noisiness and laughing and clapping and all that goes on. So I think my change history, and it gets a lot more aggressive in the corporate world with regards to, you know, point counterpoint. There's not a lot of, there's less point counterpoint here. There's a lot of people throwing facts and dates that are, you know, it's kind of like CNN. They're 20% accurate. Fox, they're 20% accurate. You put them together, they're only 40% accurate. They're still 60% wrong. Well, to some degree, that's the way some of the groups are. And I think that you should get ahead of that a little bit and redirect some of those energies. Past that, significant budgeting and strategic planning experience, significant. I know how to plan, strategic plan. I know I'm critical thinking in that area. Done it for 30 years in a senior leadership role on a global basis, across in languages. So I've hired and employed every race, creed, or color in the world, in around the countries in the world. And I think that background would lend itself to the consolidations of the school systems that occurred a while back, generated larger entities that require a little more knowledge on larger entities. So if you got the Titanic heading and it sees the iceberg, it's so big it can't stop and turn. So to some degree, when you have an entity as large as this system is, it's a pretty good sized budget, you can't turn it on a dime. There's a commitment to resources and buildings and technology and training that is necessary to understand. So some of the learning curves that I've heard with regards to problems that you've had with adopting change, I know those already and could probably head off the delays in your learning curves. So I think generally speaking, I bring a senior management level experience. That's not a stuffed shirt. I'm a very hands-on guy, and I understand organizational structure And so I think all that could be valuable. And teamwork is critical. You're not getting anywhere without teamwork. And that's team within the school board, team with the school board and the administration and teachers, and of course, the community as a whole. So I guess that's what I would offer.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much, Phil, for coming in, and thank you to all the candidates who came in tonight. As I mentioned earlier, we will be making a decision next week at our August 26th meeting. We're missing a couple of school board members tonight, so we thought it was probably more appropriate to make this appointment when everyone can be here. So next Thursday, we'll be making a decision on this. So thank you all again for coming in tonight. We appreciate the time that it took for that. And with that, this meeting's adjourned. Thank you.